I've been making games for 12 years and I always tried to make something innovative and experimental. And I think now I'm actually making something that might change the way we make games. Let me explain why. So, I always had a dream to make infinitely replayable game. A game that would be fun to play and interesting even to me as its developer. But it was always a dream that seemed impossible until one day when it just clicked and I knew exactly how to make it a reality. So let's think together. How can it be possible to make such a game? And if it is possible, why hasn't anyone achieved that yet? Or have they? There are many games that have been popular for decades, but are they infinitely replayable? And what do I even mean by that? When I say infinitely replayable, I mean a game that does not cease to be interesting, that presents something new constantly, that changes and evolves throughout many years. And in our era of digital technology, it is trivial to change a game after its release. I mean, games get updated constantly, but it is very hard as a game designer to change a game and make it better and not worse. It is hard to always think from the perspective of the player, and the best example of that is the famous "you think you know, but you don't."
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
So how can it be done? It is very hard to please many players, especially because sometimes it seems that they want completely different things. Games that keep players engaged for years have one thing in common. They listen closely to players' feedback. And this is where the answer is. It can't really be anywhere else. Only players know how to keep them interested. Players are very creative and they have many cool ideas. So, can we make players design and develop our game? Certainly. There are many games that tried that, and they too have one thing in common. They usually just provide some instruments for players to create content on the side, be it maps, levels, mods, custom game modes, whatever. It is never the core part of the game. It is just something that you have an option to play, right? But even then, incredible things can sprout out from that. I mean, some of the most popular games today have been created this way. Say what you will about Dota and Counter-Strike, but those are some of the most popular games right now, and they have been for more than a decade, almost 2 decades, and it doesn't seem to stop. This is like a hidden treasure, an endless source of creative ideas that we just have to find a way to tap into. And I think I found a way. So is it really possible to make players develop our game? Do we have to hire them as coders and designers? I mean, kinda, but not exactly. All we have to do is let players provide their ideas and sort out best of them. The game has to become a machine to sort out great ideas and absorb them. It has to be malleable and able to adapt and change constantly. It has to evolve throughout many years. It has to become the manifestation of our creative collective mind. So what kind of game could that be? In the past decade or so, a certain type of games became very popular. First, we saw it with roguelikes, but more generally, it is kind of games that let players collect pieces of mechanics and combine them to find synergies. And recently, a perfect game emerged for our concept: auto battlers. They fit perfectly because all the player does is collect those pieces of strategies and watch them interact. All we have to do is allow players to create and manage those pieces. And as you might have guessed, there is a big problem with that. And if we solve that problem, this can actually become a reality. And that problem is balance. So how do we balance players' creations? When you think about games that have a lot of content, it's usually very important that this content is balanced. If we have a bunch of items in our game and some of them is very powerful and some of them are completely useless, this may actually break our game completely. If the players feel that the game is unfair or that it is trivial, they may lose interest very quick. When the player becomes strong, we want this to be because of how good their strategy was and not because we didn't balance our content well enough. And task of balancing big amounts of content is one of the hardest in game design. This problem killed many games because with more content, the complexity of balancing the content becomes exponentially more difficult. So how do we solve that? Yeah, you guessed it, also with the help of players. Let's specifically describe our task here. To balance a game's content, we have to first find the most powerful things and the least powerful things. And then we can either rebalance it, nerf or buff, or we can just remove it from the game. First part is actually pretty straightforward. Because our game is an auto battler, the players usually just pick heroes to make their team stronger. So if we just look at the most popular heroes and the least popular heroes, those will be the strongest and the weakest accordingly. So for a game to rebalance itself automatically, we can introduce content rotations. Each week we can remove X amount of most popular and least popular heroes and replace them with new heroes. This way the game will never stagnate and become boring with obvious meta. The new meta will have to be found each week and anyone can be the one to find it. But there is a second big problem that we have to solve. How do we actually allow players to create our heroes? In basically any auto battler, a hero consists of three things: name and description, implementation, and visuals. We have to provide instruments for players to do each of those three things. From the very start of conceptualizing the game, I wanted to give any player a chance to become one of its creators. That means that nobody should have to learn any specific instrument. It should be sufficient to just provide the idea by simply spelling it out. It's not that easy with implementation and visuals, but it seems that with recent AI progress, soon it will be sufficient to create any sort of content with just words. But for now, we'll have to come up with something a bit more technical. For each part of hero creation, we can make a role that any player can fill, and those are inventor, implementer, and artist. Inventor describes the hero, implementer actually makes it so the hero does what the description says, and the artist makes some unique visuals for this hero. I won't get into too much details about instruments for creating implementations and visuals, that's something for another video. It will require some learning, but I've spent a lot of time making it as straightforward, simple and fun as possible. In future, it should be easy to improve those instruments to make them even more accessible. Right now, my main goal is to make creating new heroes as fast as possible, and in one of the previous iterations of the game, I actually spent, I think, about 2 days to make about 50 heroes, each with a unique ability and visuals. Now, one of the most important things is to actually motivate players to provide their ideas. And I think just ability to do so could be enough, but we can do better. In our capitalist world, there is one thing that is one of the best motivators for people, and that's fear. I mean, money. Can we just give people money to motivate them to create? Sure. We just have to figure out where to get those money from. So let's talk about monetization. And this is the second thing that will make our game very special. I don't think anyone has done this before. The game will be free, but it will have an optional subscription system. I want it to be very optional and not provide any gameplay advantages. Main point of it would be that the half of the money from subscription we will redistribute among other players. And I think this will be the most fun part about the game. We can form a pool of money that players will compete to get. We can reward the best creators as well as best players of the game. I want the game to have this competitive spirit where players compete with each other and the clear winner is decided regularly. So this is how it can work. We can have a global high scores table, and each week we decide one winning player. And this player gets their share of the prize pool, as well as players who created the heroes that went into that winning player's team. Then the players will not only be motivated to play their best, but to create the best heroes that will lead to creating the strongest team. Many problems may come out from this, but we can make many instruments to control this flow of creation. For example, we can allow players to vote for content or even for ideas to change the game or add features to it. I am sure that from all these systems can grow a very cool community of awesome creative people that just want to provide their ideas and make the game flourish. I've explained how it may work in very broad strokes, and I will go into more details in future videos. But now let me just share you my progress with the game for the past 2 years. Right now I'm remaking the game from scratch for the third time. And this time it's because I'm moving to new engine called Bevy, which is a Rust game engine that I just love so much. I can go on about for a very long why I love it, and maybe that's also an idea for a future video. It took a while for experimenting with the gameplay because I really wanted to nail like the base auto battler mechanics. So I really wanted to create a fun auto battler to play without all the creation systems and stuff. Many tries and playtests later, I think I got there. This is the foundation that everything else will be built on. I have done the systems for content creations and gameplay, and right now the goal is to make a simple multiplayer and put the game out. You can actually play the previous iteration of the game on Gang Engine right now. So I will be working on adding more content, working on UIs and some networking for multiplayer. Every day of development I stream on Twitch, and from recently I will be making devlogs here on YouTube. So stay tuned to follow my journey of making the most innovative auto battler. I am really eager to hear any ideas you might have, so jump into my stream or leave your thoughts here in the comments below. I am a solo indie developer and currently I am not making any money from working on the game, and my dream is to actually be supported to people who are also passionate about the project. So please consider supporting me on Patreon. By supporting me, you will gain access for private Discord for patrons. You will be able to provide your ideas directly to me, and you will also gain access to a daily devlog that I will be posting on Patreon. That will be it for now. Thank you for watching till the end. I'll see you very soon, and have a great day, my friend.